Hey guys, I'm back today with another weapon, and I don't really want to look at this as a weapon review as I have been doing recently. There's a lot of weapon reviews, and if you're looking for god rolls, if you're looking for the best way to build a gun, there are so many resources already out there to do that, and I'm not really in it to compete with those voices. I'm not going to. I'm not capable of doing so. I wanted to have a little bit of a different conversation today about Aberrant Action, the solar rocket sidearm that has released with Act 2 of Episode Echoes. We now have 3 legendary rocket sidearms, plus an exotic, Buried Bloodline, which is technically a rocket sidearm, and it feels like now we have enough of a grouping, although I'm really crossing my fingers for a stasis version. I feel like we have enough here to start talking about how these guns stand out against each other. Because you can have all the best perks, you can have all these great options, but is it worth using over the guns you already have? Starting in that slot, the advantage you have with Aberrant Action over something like Buried Bloodline is you get the healing without having to take over your exotic slot. Having heal clip in the 3rd column, which is going to be the wildly popular option in that column because it gives you Cure 2, which is, I believe, 120 health in PvE just for getting a kill. There's no other work required. You don't need to proc Devour. You don't need to go through the loop. Not that it is a complicated loop with Buried Bloodline, but you just kill an enemy, reload your gun, and you get healing. It's just like that. That is a huge boon for somebody who wants to, say, run an exotic primary or wants to run an exotic heavy. Now you're not tying down your exotic because I want the rocket sidearm that is going to heal me because I'm running Verity or something like that. You're less restricted in that regard. And I think that's huge. And it makes this weapon immediately useful in a way that something like Indebted Kindness is not. In the same way that this weapon takes advantage of its verbs better than Indebted Kindness can. Indebted Kindness suffers from being an arc weapon. Arc does not have the strongest verbs right now, and so you look at an ideal role in a weapon like that as Lead from Gold and Volt Shot. Volt Shot is a great perk, but it can't really compete with Incandescent and its immediate readiness, its ability to just proc on every single kill, no reload required. And if you do reload, guess what? If you're running heal clip, you now healed yourself with that as well. So you're getting these big ad wave clears, you're getting healing. Indebted Kindness cannot compete with that. Indebted Kindness is a great rocket sidearm, but it is also the first rocket sidearm, and it feels like Aberrant Action is a more thoughtful version of the archetype for that slot. The same goes for the Call. The Call has been one of my favorite weapons in the Prismatic era because it generates a ton of darkness energy for Prismatic, and that has allowed me to use Transcendence a lot more, which has been great. The Call doesn't have a lot of defining roles. It is a great weapon, it is highly effective, but it is also a strand weapon. And strand is a great archetype in the sense that you have the energy for breaking shields and things like that more effectively than a kinetic weapon. But you're also looking at perks like Slice, which can be replicated on Prismatic with a fragment. So Slice becomes a little less useful for a weapon like that. And unless you're running a Warlock trying to get hatchlings, that does not appeal to me as a Titan who's trying to run around and use hazardous propulsion to get a damage buff on these weapons. I'm looking at dishing out a ton of damage. Ultimately, that led me to One for All on a weapon like that, which is great. But One for All is not the same as something like Incandescent. Yes, I have to hit multiple enemies to proc it, but imagine having Incandescent in One for All. Crazy thought, probably never going to happen. But it goes to show that, Indebted Kindness is the prototype. It's kind of the blueprint. The Call was a safe next step for something like that. And Aberrant Action feels like the experimental push forward. This feels like, how far can we push this archetype? The Call was safe, and this one definitely feels more bold because it embraces those solar verbs so effectively. The trade-off for that, compared to its contemporaries, is going to be the lack of lead from gold. The perk in the third column that really makes those weapons feel as good as they do, not so much in actual feel, but just in usefulness, is lead from gold. Being able to keep them constantly stocked up, fire your heavy, pick up a heavy brick, get more ammo. Get a ton of ammo, usually a full mag, sometimes more. You could get 20 rounds from a heavy mag. All of a sudden, you can start using that weapon more like a primary because you're constantly getting that flow of ammo. Aberrant Action does not have that. It has Field Prep as its ammo economy perk, which is good, but with the recent changes to reserves and the on average about 15% increase in reserves, generally speaking, you get about another mag of ammo for Aberrant Action, which means having something like Field Prep where the reserves are deeper is not as important as it used to be. And again, that's competing with Heal Clip, which was already the more popular option. So it kind of takes Field Prep out of play a little bit because the problem kind of fixed itself. And since then, I do believe the ammo economy for Aberrant Action has actually been considerably better, especially when you combine it with the Radiolaria Transposer. You're killing ads very quickly. You're killing larger enemies relatively easily, especially if you've scorched them with smaller targets. They're dying much faster. Being solar, it's just a great usability option, especially when you take into account surges. A lot of people are still running Apex Predator, so you get that synergy with your surges, with your reserves. It just kind of makes everything so easy to build around because there are so many great options within Solar, and Arc doesn't have as many of those great options. Strand doesn't have as many of those great options as Solar does. And I think that's what makes Aberrant Action so special, is it's because it's part of a very strong subfamily of elements. Solar has been strong forever. I don't see it ever not being strong, and you can use this gun on any Solar kit and it will be extremely effective. It is the most usable of all of the rocket sidearms because it makes itself so attractive. You want to use it. It's hard to put down because what do you have that is objectively better than it? There are going to be creative ways to build into this. My traditional train of thought is to build high velocity to make the weapon feel a little more decisive, a little more snappy in its usability. That has always been my favorite way to build them. This specific rocket sidearm with Incandescent does offer the opportunity to perhaps build more into blast radius and maybe take advantage of that spreading of Scorch, make a little mini breach load grenade launcher, if you will, with just deeper reserves. There are interesting options, and it's a great gun. It's weirdly not my favorite. I think it's just because I've used it more. I think I like Indebted Kindness just a little bit better. There's something about it, and I think it's just the familiarity I have with the weapon. But the more I use Aberrant Action, especially after that reserve change, the more I'm starting to enjoy it, and the more I'm really thinking, hey, you know what? maybe I can get away from my Crux Termination. Maybe I put that Apex Predator back on. Maybe I don't run this Arc Synergy with Necrochasm because it's not as important as having Healing on Demand and having Incandescent and then having that best-in-class rocket as well. It starts to make me rethink the synergies of how I've been playing. And I think that's the biggest compliment that you can give a weapon is, does it make you rethink your loadout? Does it make you think twice? Well, I could run this, but if I keep running this, then I can run Galley, I can run Apex, I can run, the machine gun that's coming in the next act. Spoilers for anybody who didn't know that. There's a solar machine gun coming in the next act. A weapon that makes you think twice in a positive way is the best compliment a weapon can get, in my opinion. And so I think Aberrant Action really does stand out in the crowd. It's maybe not the best feeling of the three in terms of its stat package, but it's hard to pass up when a weapon is this good for so little effort in return. It's hard to pass this up. It exemplifies what made rocket sidearms so good to begin with, is they were so effective at being special weapons, great ammo economy, effective against red bars, effective against orange bars, effective against yellow bars. They were kind of a Swiss Army knife tool. And Aberrant Action feels like that within the archetype. And it's promising that Bungie is willing to put out a new rocket sidearm that is this strong at a time when people are wondering, hey, are rocket sidearms going to stay this strong forever, or is Bungie going to do something about it? You'd like to think that if they're willing to put out a weapon this effective, that they're satisfied with where rocket sidearms are, and it's a matter of bringing up other special weapons to compete. That is my hope, but ultimately, Aberrant Action is great and might be the best weapon that this episode has, period. I cannot see a lot of other options really competing with it, especially not in its slot. As much as I love Corrasion, it's hard to want to use that or even my Nullify when Aberrant Action is right there. I can use my Necrochasm still, and I can just throw on an Apex Predator, build all those synergies, and go to town. So definitely get your hands on this weapon, play around with it, and let me know what your favorite builds are. Give people some ideas of what you've been enjoying. And if you guys have enjoyed this slightly different take on talking about weapons, please let me know. If you enjoyed it, throw me a comment. Just let me know. If you didn't, I appreciate feedback. If you want that more technical weapon review format, I'm happy to do that. And it isn't like a cut and dry, we're just going to make this decision and roll with it forever. I would like to know what brings you guys back to see my content or what made you click. I'm interested. I'd like to evolve my content and make it something that people can enjoy as a second, third, fourth opinion even. Yeah, help me out. It's not as desperate as it sounds, but any feedback, any constructive feedback, I really appreciate, just so I can know what to do next. But thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you on the next video.